back again, the one and only Media Maestros podcast. We're so glad you decided to join us. Thank you for coming back and checking us out once more. I'm one half of your team, Ram, with the one and only Ray, and there's no place we'd rather be. Ray, my guy, how you been, bro?
I've been cooling, man. I've been catching up on some things, catching up on some TV shows, some movies. Not as much music as I'd like to, but that's okay. How have you been?
Yeah, same. I've been watching a lot of reality TV, a lot of
Okay.
love shows. I've watched Love Island,
Heard about that.
Love is Blind.
Heard about that one too.
Been a lot of love in the household. So things are going well, man. Things are going well.
Sounds like it.
What what's the thing? You said you've been catching up on some movies and shows. Anything really pique your interest?
Yeah. I luckily got around to watching the latest edition of one of my favorite franchises of all time,
Hmm.
and that
Hmm.
is Scream 6.
I didn't know where you're gonna take that.
So I've been a huge fan of the Scream movies for a long time. The first Scream came out back in 1996, around there.
Wow, older than me.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And Scream is one of my favorite franchises of all time. My top three: Scream, Saw, and Final Destination. But
Ah,
Scream is top on there. And yeah, they came out with the second one. This is a direct sequel to the Scream that came out last year, 2022. And it's basically a continuation of that story, same characters, but they're in a new city. And the events of the last movie, they're dealing with the trauma from what happened, and we're getting into this new environment that they're in.
so wait a second. They came out with the most recent one last year.
Yeah, the Scream reboot came out
Yeah,
last
yeah.
year, and they came out with the sequel straight away
Okay, so
a
is
year
this like
later.
a like extended cut, like a Snyder version, or is this actual
No, this
sequel?
is this is a sequel. This is a
Okay,
completely new movie.
okay. What were your
Uh,
thoughts?
so again, as a huge Scream fan, I have very high expectations when it comes to this.
Hmm.
And I actually I really liked I what should I say? I medium liked the last one just because my bar is so high for Scream. I thought that the reboot that came out last year did a good job. It had some good kills. You know, the main thing that you go into for a Scream movie is trying to figure out who the killer is, who's Ghostface.
There's a different
You
killer every
know,
movie.
different killer every movie, trying
Huh.
to figure out who it is, what the connections are, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
and by the end you get the big reveal. And that's, it's kind of the same way of like an M. Night Shyamalan movie where you're waiting for the big twist at the end. Scream kind of has that too.
So was Scream, and help me if I'm, mistaken. Was Scream the movie? I think I may have seen one. Was this at the end of the movie, the guy who the entire movie was like, he limped and he had like a speech impediment. And at the end, he like straightened up and was like the killer. Was that Scream or what?
That was a scary movie. Yeah,
Okay, so that was a
scary
scary
movie
movie.
based off of Scream.
But
That's
then
right.
Scream. Okay. Okay. So what is
Yeah,
it about Scream that's really drawn you to be one of your favorite series of all time when it comes to that horror genre?
I think the thing that really captured me about the original movie in particular is that it's a satire of the horror genre while
Hmm.
still being a good horror movie. You
Okay.
know, because you have these like spoof movies like Epic Movie or Date Movie or things like
Yeah.
that are making fun of other things, but the movie itself isn't a good movie.
Yeah.
Like it may have some laughs or whatever, but Scream, I think, perfectly balances being meta
Hmm.
and like attacking or like critiquing the genre of like all of these different tropes and cliches, but doing it in a interesting and creative way that still makes for a good movie. And that's
Okay.
what's always drawn me in, especially with the original trilogy. then the fourth movie that came out a few years later, and then going into these movies, I'm hoping I came in hoping that it kind of kept that same flavor, and I think that there are little bits and pieces that are missing in that sense. I don't think it has necessarily the same kind of creativity
Mm.
that the original movies had,
Hmm.
but I don't think they're doing a bad job. I think they are still kind of, keeping a good amount of suspense and thrills
Hmm.
and trying to figure out who the killer is. The kills are always like, another like big point of Scream. Like, how are they gonna die?
Yes.
Like, you know, in the past, a character died from a garage door. Character died from a TV getting dropped on their head.
Oh
Like all
gosh.
these like goofy, ridiculous deaths, and it does also keep up with that too. So I thought it
Okay.
was I thought it was a solid movie overall.
Okay. Okay. Now, one last question. You mentioned that the series originated from in 1996. Do we
Right.
have kind of the does it ever feel kind of played out? Think about like Jamie Lee Curtis running from Michael Myers from before I was even born. Does it
Right.
ever feel played out and kind of out of touch, or do you think it still does a good job of maintaining its relevance all the way here in 2023?
So I think the benefit that the Scream franchise may have over the Halloween franchise per se is that there have been like 15 Halloween movies,
Yeah.
and most of them have been bad. So it was easy for it to get stale because they were banking off of the name Halloween and Michael Myers, not actually putting any thought into the story. And I don't think that that's the same case with Scream. This is the sixth movie,
Hmm.
and I think that they each time they do it only when they actually have something in mind and a story to tell and something that they think is interesting. Whether or not, the audience agrees is one thing, but you can at least tell that they put some thought into the movie before putting it out. And I respect that.
Okay. I think that's a really, really great breakdown. Okay. Well, I was interested in checking it out. And now I think I have a little bit of a push to go see what it's all about.
Are you into horror movies? Would
Uh,
you get
you know,
squeamish a little bit?
we spoke about it briefly in our Cocaine Bear review. That the graphic nature is something I'm not
Right.
quite used to. But
The
I love a
gore.
good plot. You mentioned that the Scream series does a great job of telling a story.
Mm,
And I would hate to see people get killed just for the sake of killing people.
right.
But if
Gratuitous.
it's exactly, but if it's a great story, I'm willing to check it out. So we'll see.
All right. All right. Yeah. I look forward to hearing what you have to say about it if you do.
Yeah. Now you mentioned you saw some great movies and shows this past weekend, right?
That's right.
What else did you
So
check out?
yeah, another heavy hitter in pop culture right now. A standout show from the past few years on HBO.
Okay.
Season 4 of Succession recently just came back.
Okay.
So episode 2 came out this past Sunday, and Succession has just been, I consider, easily like one of, if not the best drama on television right now. It is
Really?
such a strong show. It is such a well written, well acted kind of masterpiece, and even a show kind of still. It's only just starting its fourth season. I think it kind of puts a name for itself in the HBO kind of collection of great series that they have.
Wow. Now I've seen the first season, so I'm relatively familiar
Okay.
with the premise, but for our listeners out there that haven't checked it out, what exactly is Succession all about?
So I would say the basic premise is you have this patriarch by the name of Logan Roy, who runs this media company, and then off of that you have his children, Kendall, Shiv, Roman, and Connor, who um, more so the first three children are kind of trying to find a spot in this empire for themselves and
Hmm.
trying to figure out where they land. And throughout the series, it's just a lot of um, switching of alliances that you
Mm-hmm.
see, a lot of betrayals
Mm.
and just manipulations that occur when these characters are trying to put themselves on the top. And that's what makes it interesting, seeing the character dynamics change throughout the series.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is the fourth and final season, if I'm not mistaken. Or
That's right. Yeah.
okay.
It was actually a surprise for me hearing that, but this
Yeah.
is the final season of the series, and I know it's going to be bittersweet because of how much I've loved watching it, but hopefully they end it out with a great finale. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Well, that's high praise, one of the greatest dramas on TV. It's funny, I feel like we talk about HBO like every episode.
Yeah, they come out with hits, man. We have to.
So I mean, you mentioned the kind of pantheon and where HBO ranks amongst its offerings of TV shows. I mean, how would you
Hmm.
rank some of the most recent HBO shows? Let's say last 5 to 10 years.
Mm, that's tough. They've put out a lot of bangers, even just in the past 5 years, let alone decade. But I think I would have to put Succession up there. Um, and then, to round out my list, Game of Thrones, one of the
Hmm.
biggest.
Hmm.
Even with, the slight disappointments that people had with the last season, I think
Yeah.
the strength of the, previous seasons just makes it one of the best series of all time. And then Veep was a comedy that I followed from the beginning to end. I think it's hilarious. Julie Louis Dreyfus is amazing in that role. Um, another one is Barry, which is kind of like a comedy drama hybrid and deals with this hitman who wants to be an actor,
Hmm.
and it goes in some crazy places, and I love it. And then for the past few years, I'd probably have to go True Detective. I
Okay.
think I think that first season of True Detective is one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen.
Wow.
And even though the second season didn't necessarily live up to what the first season installed, the third season picked right back up and was great as well. And they're actually coming out with the fourth season this year,
Okay.
starring Jodie Foster. So that would probably be my, you know, short list of greats from the past handful of years.
Okay. That's a solid list. It's funny because my list is actually totally different
Oh wow,
for the
okay.
most part. I mean, starting at five, I would say after throwing The White Lotus. I've loved
Man.
that show. I know you have some differing opinions, but I've loved this show just for its critique on modern, somewhat elite America. I've really enjoyed that. Two seasons in, and both seasons have been starkly different, but yet
Mm,
tell the same tale, essentially.
okay.
At number four, I'm going to throw in Insecure.
Mm,
Insecure was somewhat of a cult following, cult classic, but I think it stands on its own as just being essentially the tale of a generation. You think
okay.
about young Black millennials as they're in that phase of their early 20s, figuring out life. I thought HBO did a great job of taking on a different narrative that I think is rarely introduced on mainstream TV.
Mm,
After that, I would have to say Euphoria. Now, you talk about that
yeah.
kind of narrative. I think taking some would say problematic, but adolescent approach of looking at how these kids in high school are dealing with the pressures and dramas and peer pressures and anxieties and mental issues and relationship dramas. I think I've
Yeah.
always been a sucker for kind of those high school dramas all the way back from Saved by the Bell. So to
Mm,
see it brought up into the modern day, I really enjoyed that. Second on my list is going to have to be Watchmen.
wow.
Now, I've also always been a sucker for superheroes and comic books, and Watchmen is different. I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't seen it. Must see. It's a must see. Watchmen is different, but worth checking out. And lastly, gotta go with the one and only Game of Thrones.
Mm,
A series from start to end. People don't like the ending. That's fair. It wasn't perfect, but I think it told the story it tied things up effectively. Obviously, I think
Mm.
the creators just wanted to get that bag and get out of there, but but I think that Game of Thrones still stands as one of the greatest shows of all time, just from season 1 through 8.
I agree with that. And hearing a couple of things on your list, they could have easily slid into mine.
Yeah.
Watchmen and Euphoria in particular were amazing, and that's just a testament to how many great shows HBO has.
Yeah, yeah. We need to do an HBO episode one day, man. There's decades of classics.
Yeah, I would love that. I have a lot to say.
Classics, classics, classics.
So, going off of the TV shows, did you have a show in particular that you wanted to talk about this week?
I did. And this is somewhat of a different realm than what I may usually talk about, but the show I wanted to mention for you all is Kindred
Mm.
on FX, came out in 2022, and sadly just got word that the series was canceled after one season,
Ah, man.
which is really heartbreaking because I found this show to be just a mind bend the entire time. I can,
Mm.
it sounds crazy, but I can kind of see why they canceled it.
Okay.
But I just don't, I think that FX, and it was kind of one of the FX on Hulu standouts. Every time you
Okay.
watched Hulu for pretty much the entire winter, you were getting ads for Kindred, Kindred, Kindred. But I don't
Hmm.
think people really gravitated towards it as they may have anticipated. But to give some backstory, the show is it's the tale of a woman who's in South Central Los Angeles. Well, maybe not South Central, but she's in Los Angeles. And she has this supernatural experience one day where she moves to a new house, and in the middle of the night, she wakes up and she happens to be in the antebellum South
Mm.
in the some period of the late 1800s, maybe mid to late 1800s. And she has to figure out what she's doing there, why she's there. And throughout the series, it goes through kind of, or throughout the season, I guess, since the series is concluded.
So it's just
Throughout
one season?
just one season that came out in early 2023. I would say late 2022.
Okay.
And this woman has to deal with obviously the perils of being a young black woman in the antebellum South, while
Yeah.
also having to deal with the fact that she kind of flashes back and forth. And she has to deal with the fact that to everyone else, she seems insane because she's talking about this experience. And all in all, I found it to be a really mind bend kind of brain
Mm.
twister. I'm a sucker for shows that really make you think about what does this mean, what's going on. But I enjoyed it. Another
Yeah,
piece
that
that I was just going to say, another piece that really sucked me in is that this show was based on and created by Octavia Butler, who's had plenty of classics. Um, and I think that it's based on a science fiction novel.
mm.
So I think that it's just a unique tale. And it's sad that the story won't be concluded, but I think it's worth the watch for those 8 episodes in that one season.
Yeah, that really reminds me of a movie that came out a few years ago. I think it was called Antebellum, starring Janelle Monáe.
Yes.
Did you watch that movie?
So funny enough, I did not watch the movie. As I
Okay.
watched the series, I spent the entire series thinking, this seems so familiar.
Right.
Because I had seen the trailers for Antebellum and wanted to
Yeah,
watch the movie. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't seen it. I've only heard about it.
Maybe I'll have to watch the movie now and compare.
Yeah, I've heard it's also kind of a little mind bendy and
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
So, just my luck, the two may be based on the same
I
novel.
was I was thinking that it's very possible.
So I'm gonna check it out though. That movie did interest me, and as a result, this show interested me as well.
Okay, yeah, I'm into mind bending series as well. So I'll definitely check out that one season if I can get to it.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. It's worth checking out. It's worth checking out. Well, I don't have any new music that I was able to really get into these last couple weeks, but I did watch the Dreamville Fest. Did you catch that, Ray? And we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, I wasn't able to catch it, but I heard you have some comments about the performances and whatnot.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I'm a huge J. Cole fan, for those that may not know. So I've been a
Mm,
fan of his since about 2008, really. Actually, the mixtape days
wow.
before he ever dropped an album. So to see
Mm,
him go from this guy who really wanted to one day have a rap career to being one of the biggest artists in the world is super somewhat emotional, but super just celebratory for him. Really
mm,
glad to see that. Excited. I thought the fest was awesome. For me personally, I'm really enamored by the fact that, we have these huge festivals that are run by Live Nation. You see the Coachellas, the Rolling Louds every year. And I think that obviously festivals and touring is a huge business these days.
mm.
But to see a guy like J. Cole want to come up with his own idea and really make something almost for us by us in a sense, I've enjoyed it. So I'm a huge supporter of that.
Yeah,
Would
that's
love to get out there one day.
really commendable. I was thinking about going out there this year, didn't quite make it happen. But one year I definitely
Yeah.
wanna check that out. That would be amazing.
Yeah, same. We'll have to bring Media Maestros on the road to
Yeah.
Raleigh, North Carolina.
That would be awesome. I'd
Yes,
love
sir.
that.
Yes, sir. But you did have an album to share with us, right?
Yeah. So it was actually an artist that I saw perform at Something in the Water this past year.
Okay. Speaking of
And
festivals.
yeah, and she has a really great voice.
Hmm.
I enjoyed the songs that she performed there, as well as some of the songs that I heard previously from her previous album, Truth Is, back in 2019.
Hmm.
And that's Sabrina Claudio.
Oh, okay.
Sabrina Claudio, she put out an album this past year, or last year, 2022, called Based on a Feeling. And it was kind of a short and sweet album. Not too many songs. It kind of, just packed a punch and then,
Yeah.
you know, left you with that. And I just, I've talked on this show before about how I've been really into smooth R&B
Just a
kind of
vibe.
vibes that just take
Yeah.
you away, and this is another great example of that genre, that vibe.
Okay. Now you mentioned Smooth Sabrina Claudio. I think her public persona, or she's known for kind of that poppy, kind of teeny bopper vibe. Am I wrong on that, or is this album just different?
I think it's a little mix. I know she did have like back maybe a few years ago, like 2019 and back, she had some more pop songs where she worked with like Zayn, for example, of One Direction fame.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's kind of always had a R&B vibe to her.
Okay.
I guess besides like some of the, you know, pop singles that she's put out. It's mostly just the album cuts are very much that, and this follows suit for sure.
Okay. Okay. I would love to check that out. Sabrina Claudio. Okay. Based on a feeling.
Based on a feeling,
Are
yeah.
there any
And
standouts you recommend?
there is it's when I was listening to it, I realized that it was actually the standout song that she performed at Something in the Water. So hearing
Mm,
it back, I was like, this is becoming like one of my favorite songs of this past year. And that song, let me pull it up real quick, is called Better Version.
okay.
So Better Version was a standout for me, and I think it's just a great R&B track.
Okay. Well, based on a feeling, I'd say Sabrina Claudio is a little outside of my typical wheelhouse, but I'm willing to give that a spin if it's worth it.
Yeah, check it out. I think she also has a song with Wale that you
Okay.
might enjoy.
Okay.
So look out for that one as well.
Okay. I'm on it. I'm on it. Great find. Well, it's about that time, and it wouldn't be an episode of the Media Maestros without a blast from the past. This time
Mm.
I'm gonna kick it off to you, Ray. What's on tap?
Yeah, so this is a movie that kind of has two different reputations,
Hmm.
and recently it's kind of been absorbed as like an alpha or a sigma male film, which is absolutely not what it is, and the people that are saying that are completely missing the point. One of those examples of like you're not supposed to root for him, like a
Yeah.
Walter White or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the film is American Psycho, starring
Hmm.
Christian Bale.
One and only.
Yeah, this came out back in 2000, so 23 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a really iconic film. It has some iconic scenes, including the and quotes as well, from the, let's see Paul Allen's card, or just the scene with him having Jared Leto's character in the apartment, and then like playing the music and like, trying to figure out the way to kill him, because that's basically what it's about. Is this guy who Patrick Bateman,
Mm-hmm.
who has this dark side to him. Like on the surface, he's very neat and clean, and he's wealthy. He's put together. He has a lot of things going well for him, but he has this dark side where he just can't control his violent nature, and it's
Mm.
showing him battle between that and you know the law enforcement is trying to figure out if he's like what's going on and whatnot. And it's a really interesting dissection of masculinity and privilege and um, the patriarchy and all these different concepts that and themes. And I think the most interesting aspect of the film, and I would like to offer a spoiler alert just real quick, but the thing is, and I'm not going to actually say what happens, but it's just a thought idea of the really interesting thing about this is you get to the end of the film and all of these events, all of these crazy events have occurred.
Mm.
And you come to a point where things just start unraveling in a weird way. Like, wait, I thought that was supposed to not exist, and that looks weird,
Mm.
and it really becomes that psychological thriller. Once you get to that point, everything
Yeah.
comes together, and I think that ending in particular is what makes it, such a great film. Once put together all of the things that you watch, and it makes for a great rewatch after knowing what happens at the end, going back, trying to find clues of
Mm.
how this happened, what makes sense, what doesn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's one of my favorite films for sure.
Well, I've heard about American Psycho for the last 23 years, and I think tonight might be the night that I finally check it out.
You'll be in for a ride, man.
And with that, we thank you all for joining us on this ride of another episode of the Media Maestros. I'm one half of your team Ram with the one and only Ray. Couldn't do it without you. Until next time, peace.
See y'all.